Hello and welcome to this RapidDeploy version 4.1 introduction, and today we're going to be looking at the basic download of RapidDeploy, installation, starting up and deploying our first project using RapidDeploy. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is we need to go to portal.midvision.com and then we click on the RapidDeploy tab. And here we can see that we can download various versions of RapidDeploy. Now I'm going to download the latest version for Linux 64-bit, and I just need to click on that link and it will start the download. Okay, so that'll take a minute or two, so let's go and make a cup of coffee while we wait for that to actually download. Okay, so that's completed the download here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go into my downloads directory. See, we've got the RapidDeploy web app Linux 64-bit zip file here. So I'm just literally going to unzip that into this directory. It doesn't matter where I install it. And I'm going to cd into the Midvision bin directory. And in here you'll see a start and a stop script, a RapidDeploy.properties file. And we'll cover how to configure that RapidDeploy.properties file later. For now, we're just going to leave that as the default. And we're just going to start the web app. Okay, so that web app's going to start. And we should be able to, if we click on the Quick Start Guide, it'll explain all of this. It'll also tell us how we can verify that the startup has been successful. We just need to go to our host address port 9090. So in this case it's just localhost. We've got 9090 Midvision here. The username and password when you first download and install RapidDeploy is mvadmin. That's the super user account. We can create many other users and groups within RapidDeploy, but for now we'll just use the super user account, and we'd advise you of course to change the password of that at your earliest convenience. And that super user lets us do anything in the tool. So normally that wouldn't be an active user account. You just use it to create your first users. Okay. So now we're in RapidDeploy. We're shown initially this first panel, which is kind of an overview of dashboard of what's been happening in RapidDeploy recently, and you can drill down into this dashboard to get more data about different time periods. But for now we will ignore that, and what we're going to do is we're going to install our first project. Okay, so to make this simple, we're going to download one of the projects that have already been created from the Midvision portal. So we go back to the RapidDeploy tab, and at the bottom here you'll see that we've got some example RapidDeploy projects and blueprints. I'm going to click on here. You can see at the top we've got 3 projects now. We've got a very simple file system operations demo here which doesn't use data dictionary items, so it's you run the same thing on every environment, but there's no environment specificity being added. What I'm going to download actually is the Hello World project, which will show some data dictionary values and how we can set those to change how the run happens in each different target environment. So I'm just going to click on that. There's a lot of information here about this project which you can read through at your leisure, and also this demo is at the bottom. So what I'm going to do though is just download that by clicking there. You can see it's downloaded this script demo 40 zip file. And we just go back into RapidDeploy. And we go onto the projects panel, which currently is empty, it's a new installation. And we're going to upload that project. I'm going to choose the file. We're in the downloads directory. It's the first one here. I'm going to open that. I'm going to import it. Okay, so I'm just going to skip to finish. It will automatically select the right paths for this installation of RapidDeploy, so it will store the new project under this installation of RapidDeploy. So I'm just going to import this project. Okay, and you can see here information that this project has been successfully imported. Okay, so now I'm just going to copy on the link for the project, and that takes us into the project pages on the orchestration tab. Now remember, a project is effectively a set of tasks, an orchestration that runs on any target that that project can be deployed to. The set of tasks is environment neutral, although we can inject environment differences by virtue of using data dictionary items, which I'll show you in a moment, or by setting target specific tasks that run only on certain targets. We can add a target specific task here, and we can add ordinary tasks here. We can make calls out to other RapidDeploy projects to do a linked deployment, which is where one job on a target server calls back to RapidDeploy to instantiate another job on the same or a different target. And we can also add loops and conditionals here. We can add if statements, while loops, and for each loops. But this project is very simple. We've just got 4 tasks in a linear set and 1 error branch. So the first task that we have simply echoes out to the screen, to the log file archive root. Now archive root is a built-in RapidDeploy variable which always will equate to the base directory of the expanded deployment package on the target server. And then it is also echoing out a couple of other built-in variables, a UUID variable that's always set, and date, mv date in milliseconds, which is date time in milliseconds. The next task is also just echoing straight out to the console or the log file. And this is showing how you can use environment variables that are set in the shell of the shell running the RapidDeploy orchestration on the target server. You can use those variables within RapidDeploy, and you can also use data dictionary items. Now a data dictionary item is anything with @ followed by a variable name followed by @, and those data dictionary items are how we can inject environment specific differences into this orchestration. So for example, the home directory in the development environment may be different to the home directory in test and production. Okay, then I'm doing a simple copy. So the source of the copy is the expanded archive, the scripts bin, and then hello world script with the suffix depending on what platform we're on, which we have called scriptxt. And we're copying it to the /temp target. So we've got 2 different scripts that we're running for this demonstration, a bat file and a shell script. The right one will be picked up depending upon which target we're deploying to. And then here we actually run the script. So this is a script runner task. So now we're running the script from the temp directory. We could just have easily have run this from within the archive and not copied it onto the target. It's really just a demonstration. Again, we've got the script extension there as a data dictionary value. And now we've also set the script arguments to be a data dictionary value script args. Now, these arguments could be hard-coded in here as whatever the arguments happen to be, but because we are going to make them different between environments, we're using data dictionary items. We expect a success code of 0. Anything else will cause the deployment to fail because fail on error is set to true. And the output parameter is basically the output from the script. So what the script returns to the console will be placed into the output parameter. Now down here, we're setting environment variables that the script will consume. So any script runner tasks, you can choose this type variable, and those variables will be set in the shell of the script that's run before that script is run. So we're setting 3 environment variables, mv shape, mv sides, and mv color, and they're being set to the respective data dictionary items mv shape, mv sides, and mv color. We'll look at those in a moment. Okay, so I'm now going to actually change this orchestration slightly. I'm going to add some tasks. So we have an output here, an output parameter. I'm going to add a task onto this script runner, so I've highlighted that. I'm going to just do add task. And I'm going to add a task that will check whether or not we get the correct string value in that output to prove that the script has run successfully. So I'm going to go down here to string, and I'm going to look for contain string test, and I'm just going to add that task. And I click on that. So the input string, well, that's already set to be the output from the previous task. And I'm going to search for MV color. Now I'm going to need to search for different things in different environments. So I'm going to make sure that there is an MV color in the output. So I'm going to search for MV color, and this will be expanded at deployment time to whatever the color is that is set for that target environment. And then the output from that is a contains result, which is a true or false depending on whether that string is found in the output from the script. So now I'm going to add a conditional task. I'm going to add an if statement. And in this if statement, I'm going to set the condition parameter to contains result. If contains result is true, then I'm happy. The script has run successfully. We've seen the correct output in the output from the script. If it's false though, I want to fail this job. So I'm going to add a failure task. And under conditionals and loops I can find a fail. And I'm going to just say, this will send a message to the console. I won't bother sending an email in this case. I could have easily added a task to send an email to people. I'm just going to say failed due to script error. I'll save that. Okay, so now we've just added a small little bit of additional functionality. And this is quite a nice example because the script runner, of course, if the script actually failed with a syntax error or actually exited with a non-zero error code, then the deployment would have failed at this point here because we've got fail on error set to true. But in fact, the script has gone through, and now we're just checking that the output we got from the script that ran successfully was the output that we expected, and if it wasn't, then we can then put a manual fail in to fail the job. The other thing you can do here, of course, is you can actually add a different failure branch. So we haven't got any failure branches at the moment, just the standard one which doesn't have any tasks on it. You can add here a failure branch, which you can then add additional tasks on this failure branch to do something in the event of a failure. And you can add as many failure branches as you want to the orchestration, and they can all do different things if you want them to. But I'm not actually going to do that, so I'm just going to delete that back off. Okay, so we've had a look at the orchestration. Let's have a quick look at some of the other panels that we've got. Next panel here underneath the orchestration is the data dictionary panel. Now, whenever you save the project, it will save all of the data dictionary items that you've entered. It will find them all, and it will place them all here with an empty value. Then you can fill in the values, and this is at the project scope of the data dictionary values. So if you don't set or override these values at the target scope, i.e. each individual target that we're going to deploy to, then the values will be what's set here at this project scope. And you can also note here that we can set data dictionary items to environment variables. You can also set data dictionary values to other data dictionary values, so you can agglomerate data dictionary values together and set them to another one. And on the settings panel you can also set the log level for the logs and the working directory on the remote server where you want to store any temporary files. That's not the same as the server working directory, which we will come to shortly. Okay, the SCM Repository tab, you can choose for your entire project, including the orchestration and the data dictionary values, to be stored or backed by an SCM repository. The SCM tool we're using at the moment is just file system, which is not really an SCM tool, but you know, it's no SCM. But you can also use things like Subversion or Git or Rational Team Concert, and all the files will be stored in those tools and checked in and checked out as necessary. Now, when we take a project and we want to deploy it, we deploy it by creating a package which is a point-in-time version of the project at that particular state that the project was in. And we store that package as a zip file or a jar file or whatever. By default it's zip. And we can put that in an artifact repository. Now, by default, when you download RapidDeploy and upload this project, that is stored in the local file system again. So it's just a set of zip files stored in the local file system that are identified by the package search string. But you could set this to be Maven or Nexus or an SCP remote file system or an agent remote file system, depending on whether you want to use the agent or our SSH plugin. And so these files or packages are built up over time to form a history of how this project looked. So not only do you have the history of the individual files in the SCM repository, but you have a replayable list of zip files which would put the environment back to exactly how it was at the time that that zip file was created. Now, we've spoken about data dictionary items at the project scope, and we've also spoken about how we can inject target specific values, and we do that on this panel. This gives us our list of targets that we can deploy to. We can just add a new target here quite easily. We can choose from existing servers that we have defined, or we can define new ones when we add a target. Environments, so we add an environment as a next level down from the server because we may wish to, for example, in this case of scripts, run the same script on the same server but passing in different data dictionary values. So we need a way of being able to differentiate between the server and the environment. Okay, so we can specify the environment and the target. Now the application. The application is just the logical name of what we want to deploy. So again, we can create different applications that run on the same server and environment if we want to. And then we have an environment type. And an environment type is something that you can create. And environment types come down to security. So different users will have different accesses to different environment types, and also approval groups are based on environment types. So for example, if we had a internet banking production environment type, then we could have approval groups associated with that, and before we could do a deployment into that environment, we would have to get the approval of at least one person from each of the approval groups required for that particular environment type. Okay, so let's go and have a look at one of these targets. Let's have a look at the localhost Windows target, this one. And you can see some of these data dictionary values that are set here are just being inherited from the project scope, and some are being overridden at this scope. Okay, so obviously we've got different color, a different shape, and a different number of sides. We've also overwritten the script that's going to get run. In this case, it's going to be helloworld.bat, not helloworld.sh. We go and have a look at one of the Linux ones. You can see in this case, the script extension isn't overridden, it's just being pulled out from the project scope, but we're just overriding the color, the shape, and the sides again. Now, you can add new variables just at the target scope, and they'll show up as a yellow environment in here, or if they're blank at both the project and the environment and the target scope, then they'll show up as red empty, and those are what we call late property injection values. Anything that's empty at both the project and the target scope, you will be prompted to enter a value for it at deployment time. Now you can edit these values, and you can set them to a different types of string or password, or escape for various different technologies, such as if they're in XML files, HTML, Java, whatever you want to do. And they can also be encrypted. So they are stored on the file system encrypted, so nobody can see what they're set to. So they can be password, in which case they come up as dots, and encrypted, in which case they're also, and they can be both password and encrypted. Okay, so let's go back from there, and let's go and have a look at the actual payload. So underneath the project, the payload that we're deploying is basically two scripts, helloworld.bat and helloworld.sh. They're effectively the same thing, just one's written in shell script and the other one's a bat file. So really they're just echoing the shape, the color and the sides as the three arguments that we're passing on the command line, which we saw as the script args, and they're echoing the environment variables, which we saw were set as environment variables to the task underneath the task itself. So when we create a package, all of that, the orchestration, the target specific configuration, the scripts, will all be included in the package. There's one other thing to mention which I'm not going to go into today, which is external resources. In RapidDeploy you can set up external resources. These can be shared with projects. You specify them on the main general tab here. They come up here if there are any specified, and you can select them by just simply clicking on this add arrow, and those external resources will be copied into the package at package creation time, or if you wish to, at deployment time they'll be downloaded onto the target server and added into the package at that point. Okay, so let's go to packages and let's just create a package. Okay, we've created a package, and remember this package is just a point-in-time representation of this project as it is right now. And now we can go back on targets and we can just deploy to any of these targets that we want by clicking on the play button. Now as the system administrator here, mvadmin, I can just do a deployment to any target. Of course, in real life I probably wouldn't be able to. I'm just going to click here. I'm just going to say yes. As you saw there, I could also schedule that if I wanted to. So now we can go to running jobs, and we can see this job executing in real time. We can also look at the log output in real time, although actually it's just finished. And then that will get cleared away from this page in a minute, but you can see all the copies taking place and the individual tasks being run. So you can see it's copying each of the jar files over for each of the plugins. Now it will only copy those files if they don't already exist on the target at the same checksum. So if the checksum's changed, it will recopy them, but otherwise it won't. Okay, so we can just go now look at previous jobs. We've only got one previous job. We can view the log file, which, you know, in some of these jobs might get quite long. And we can see the deployment having taken place. So this is the script runner task the environment variables, the show variable expansion. You can see here the home is set to users my name, and the dictionary, and when it's set from the dictionary it's being set to the same thing. We can see the simple copy, so we're copying from archive root scripts bin into the temp directory. So this is the archive roots where it's being copied from here. So it always creates a, you can see this long name here. It always creates a temporary folder with a unique UID so that it won't trip over any other deployments that might be happening to this target at the same time. So RapidDeploy supports multiple concurrent deployments to the same target server. And it's copying it with to/temp. It's then running the script. So you can see hexagon, blue, and 6. And in fact, this is incorrect because this was supposed to be, this project that we were deploying was supposed to be a blue circle. So hexagon is incorrect, and 6 is incorrect. It should be circle and 1. So we'll go and change that and do another deployment in a moment. Okay, and then we've got the output from the log here. So we can see here blue, hexagon, 6, and the environment variables, and we're echoing out the command line arguments that are passed in, hexagon, blue, and 6. We're then checking that we contain the right string, so we're checking that the input string is blue, and it does, it contains blue. And then we're going to do an if task to make sure the contains result is true, which it is. So we carry on, we don't fail the job because we're getting the same output as the input that we put in. So that's how you can always view the previous logs. You can view that in a nicer way by clicking on this twisty here. You can actually see the job as it ran when it ran, and you can see the file transfers, and you can see each of the individual tasks. And if you click on one of those links for the individual task, you can see the log snippet just for that individual task. This is the copy task that we just looked at a moment ago. Okay, so let's go back to the project now then, and let's correct those errors that we just found in our deployment. So we go on the target, this blue circle one, we'll go and edit it. We'll change that hexagon to circle, and we'll change the number of sides from 6 to 1. Save those changes. And also we'll now go and have a look at the project files, because I know that there's a slight error in those. If we look at the hello world.sh, it says please supply at least 2 parameters to this script. Well, actually we need 3 parameters, so I'm going to change that to 3. Save that. You can do this from the command line, or you can do it through RapidDeploy in this case. Okay. So now what we'll do is create another package with our changes. Sometimes need to refresh that if it takes a while to create the package. And now we can just compare those packages to see what we're changing between this deployment and the previous one. Click compare. See, first of all, highlighted in yellow are the changes. If there were any additions, they'd be in green, and any deletions of files would be in red. We can see the manifest has changed, of course. We've added a new version number and it's being built at a different time. We can see that the data dictionary has changed. We've changed hexagon to circle and 6 to 1. And we can also see the hello world.sh has changed. We can see that we've changed the 2 parameters to 3. Okay, so now we can go and run that job again. The run button here will always deploy the latest version. In a moment I'll show you how you can deploy any version, so we could redeploy the previous version if we want to. And here we've got deployments visualization. Now at the moment you can see we've only done 1 deployment. And we can see we're currently on version 1 on the dev environment on localhost Linux server. Let's go and rerun that deployment, blue circle. We'll go to jobs, running jobs. See that job running again here. Right, that's completed nearly. So we'll go and look at the log file, and we'll make sure now that that's actually picking up the correct values. And now it is blue circle 1, so that's fine. Okay, so we've completed that job. We can always go back and look at the previous jobs again, and now we've got 2 jobs that we ran. I'm just going to click on script demo 40 to take me back to the project. Okay, so we've now seen how we can run 1 job against a target, and we can see now in the deployments visualization we've gone to version 2. But let's say we now want to put this together into a deployment plan, so we actually want to run multiple jobs together. So we go now to the My Job Plans, and we need to add a job plan. Okay, and then we'll come up with this screen as it stands now, like this, and we just first of all click on this empty box here, and we choose the project. Well, we've only got 1 project. We can choose the target. We can do localhost Linux dev blue circle, and we can do it at the latest version, or we can pick a version, or we can choose new version, in which case a new version will be created before this job plan or this pipeline is run. I'm just going to say latest version. I'm going to apply that. We can then we can do these jobs in parallel, so I can add another project job here. So we've got dev blue circle. I can add dev, let's say red square, and then I can save that. So we've just got a development environment at the moment, so I'm going to say dev and test, we'll save that. Okay, so I'm now just going to go to the project, And I'm going to go to the targets, and we've basically picked these two development targets. So I'm just going to clone one of these environments to a new environment, localhost Linux, but I'm now going to create a new target, test, and we'll keep it as red square. Now, sorry, I should point out here, at this point we can change any of the data dictionary items we want to make it unique for this particular environment, or change anything that needs to be changed that's different. But I'm not going to change anything there. I'm going to create that. So we've created that new target. Now that new target can't be deployed in any of the existing first two packages. We'll need to create a new package. I'm going to clone that again to create a production environment. We'll leave it to, well, let's change red square to something else, shall we? Let's make it a red hexagon. So we'll change this to hexagon. Then we'll change the number of sides to 6. And we'll create that target. Okay, so now we've got 2 more targets. And I'm going to now just create a new package, which includes those targets. And we'll refresh that, we've got package 3. I'm now going to go back to the job plan, and I'm going to add those targets onto the job plan. So I'm going to add a new step, a basic step. So this basic step is either auto or manual. You can enable manual execution, in which case it will wait for a certain timeout for somebody to come in and manually push it from one to the next, or you can leave it as auto, in which case it will automatically go from one to the next in this pipeline. And in a moment I'll show you how we can add approval groups to that so that it's stopped pending approval. So again, we'll choose script demo. You can mix and match project target environments, but we've only got one project here, so we don't need to, we can't really do that. So we're going to go into the test environment this time, and then we'll add another basic step, and then we'll add the we'll add a promotion job here. I'll delete that one. So we're going to promote, we're using the basic file system, so we're going to script demo 40, latest version, apply, and what that will do is it will promote it from the build store to the promotion store, which is a separate place where we deploy to production, from where we deploy to production. You can only deploy production packages from the promotion store. So I'll add another step here, and then I'll add the production deployment. There we are. I'll apply that. Okay, we can save this. So now that will deploy all the way through to our production environment without stopping. So let's see if that works. Let's run it. Okay, and I just click on this link up here, which will take me to the job as it's executing. Here you can see all the pipeline steps that are going to be run. So it's now started the first job, deploying to, in parallel it's done the 2 test environments, sorry, the 2 dev environments here, and the test environment here. Now it's very quick, so it's hard to see it. It's then doing the promotion step, so this is the promotion here. It's promoting the package from the build store to the promotion store. And it's now deploying to our production environment. Okay, we can look at any of the logs we want. You can see it running down here, and that's completed. We now go back to the previous jobs panel. We can see all of those jobs having run. I'm not going to bother looking at the logs. I think we know what's in them. But what we can do now is go to the targets, go to deployment visualization. You can see here now we've got the script demo 40 project, everything on localhost Linux. We've got the dev environment, which we've done deploy of blue circle and red square to. We've got the test and the production environments, and they're all at version 003. We can also go and have a quick look at the operations view if we want to, and see here the same thing in a slightly different format, and this will show you all projects and all targets, and you can see exactly what's deployed where. The server view here, seeing localhost Linux here, and then localhost, because a server definition can actually have multiple target IP addresses or host names. which will all get the same version. And then you can see the different environments, the different applications, and then the version that's actually deployed project. We have different views here. There's a targets view and a projects view. So this projects view is similar, or it's on its side from the view that you saw on the previous projects panel. So we've just spoken about the servers. So let's go and actually have a look at the servers. You can add new servers here. There's this add server wizard, or they'll automatically get created when you create a new target on one of the projects. Servers can be shared between projects, of course. So let's go and have a look at this localhost Linux server. You can have multiple, so that's a logical name, localhost Linux. Now for localhost, of course, there's only one server, localhost. But that display name could actually be a cluster of servers that are all getting the same deployment to them. You can specify the OS type here. And where we're going to copy things to on the target, it's called we call it the remote build store. So it's where packages and the plugins will be copied to on the target before running the job. Allow deployments, yes. Now you can switch deployments off to target servers. For example, if you want to do some maintenance on that target server, or for some reason it's going to be mothballed or shut down, and you don't want anybody to do any further deployments to it, but you want to keep the configuration maybe for some reason. Then we can have the transport. So how do we connect to that target server? So for localhost, there's a remote agent built into the RapidDeploy web app. So of course we're using that to deploy to localhost. But you can also specify SSH. Remote agent typically listens on port 20,000. You can specify multicast settings. So you can do secure connections. So RapidDeploy will create an SSL connection if you wish it to, if you use secure connection between the RapidDeploy server and the agent running on a remote server, and it will create the certificates and share those certificates for mutual authentication. And there's a number of other things. I'm not going to go into too much details on that. If we look at the SSH, of course you can choose the port, the timeout, how many times to retry a failed connection, the username to connect as, and this can be whatever it needs to be to connect, and you can use the password or an SSH key file or key file with passphrase. There are a number of other settings you can set here. This alternative execution mode, so if you, for example, you might want to make the connection as one user, but then immediately sudo or su to a different user, you have the option to do that here. Sudo, su and pbrun. Pbrun is a commercial version of sudo, and then you can specify start and ending execution parameters. So you might do sudo su minus, for example, and then everything will then be run as that other user on the target environment. And you can also add environment variables here. There's also the possibility to set cloud settings, so you can choose, we've got two here, Amazon Web Services. You can add your access key and secret key. You can then synchronize and choose instances to start so that you can set them to automatically be created if they don't exist, or to be started if they're currently stopped, and you can view a variety of things there. Okay, so that's servers. Now if we come to security, if we go back to job plans, I'm just going to not go into too much detail with security, but the job plan that we created really just deploys all the way through to production without any checks here at all. Now you could integrate this into Jenkins and have the output of the Jenkins build execute this job plan, so it will do the deployment all the way through to production. But we might want to check on this production environment to make sure that it's approved before it goes into that environment. And we can do that by setting up security. So if we go to security groups, we can add a security group. I'm going to call it prod approver in this case. Okay, and I can add an environment to that. I'm going to add deployment approval of the production environment, and I'm going to add a user of mvadmin. Now I'm not going to go into security roles, permissions, etc. In this particular tutorial, We'll go into that in a special security one in a later episode of these webinars. But for now, I'm just going to create that group. And then I'm going to go back to the project. I am going to go back to the target. I'm going to select that production target, and I'm going to go into the environment. We haven't really been onto the environment tab at the moment, and I'm going to change the environment type to production. I'm going to save that. Okay. So now if I go back to my job plans, and I go and look at this job plan, then you can see now that I've now got an approval gate that's appeared in front of this script demo 40 into production. And if we now run this plan again, it's actually just doing the same deployment this time. But now we will see, if we go back to the running jobs, that all the original first 3 jobs will run as they did before, but then the production job won't actually run. It will wait for an approval. So you can see the promotion has happened there, and now the job's saying that it's still running, but it's not actually run. Now, I don't have email configured, but if I had email configured, I would now get an email if I was in that approval group telling me that I need to do an approval. But if I now go to my dashboard, so when somebody was to log in, instead of it coming up with the dashboard view as it did when we first logged in, it now comes up with the to-do list, and I see that I've got an approval to either approve or reject. So I'm going to approve that and say approved into production. I'm going to click approve. That disappears from that list. We now go and look at running jobs. We can see that that production deployment is now running. We now go on to audit and go and look at approvals. We can always see all the historical approvals, and I can open that. I can see who requested when, who did the approval from which group. So actually I both requested and approved, which of course you would never normally allow, but in this case it's just for demo purposes. And you can click on any of these links to go and see what actually happened. Now there are a number of other things that we can look at in RapidDeploy. One of them is the plugin manager. So these are the plugins that are installed by default. You can also go and see the available plugins, and you can download whichever plugins you want into the RapidDeploy tool. There are a lot of plugins available, and as you add plugins, you'll add additional tasks to be able to run. And if we go back now to my dashboard just to finish off, we'll see that now we are seeing some various activity that's happened. We can click and scroll down and see that all of our jobs have been successful rather nicely. I don't really expect that to be true in real life, but all of the jobs we've run have been successful, and I'm the deployer of the week. Okay, so that really concludes this overview of the RapidDeploy product version 4.1. I will be adding to this webinar by adding additional webcasts or webinars to show how to do other more detailed things in RapidDeploy, specifically around particular technologies like WebSphere, etc., and how to do more complex deployments. Okay, so that's it from me today. Thank you very much for watching and your attention, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Thank you.